everybody's out there having fun.
Makes you want to get out there and join them, doesn't it?
The wait is over. The waves are warmer.
Under the Boardwalk. I might as well answer the first two questions about this movie. What the fridge is this, and where did it come from? Did someone request me to review some obscure animated flick made in Europe or something? Actually, no. Believe it or not, this is a mainstream animated feature from one of the big Hollywood studios with a cast featuring recognizable names like Michael Cera and Keke Palmer. Specifically, this was brought to us by Paramount Animation and Nickelodeon. Well, maybe not the latter, because despite showing their logo in the trailer, they must have pulled out their association at the last minute. Not long after the parent company, Paramount, put out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem and Paw Patrol the Mighty Movie on the big screen. With all that said, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you have only heard about this movie because of this review. Then again, considering that the head of Paramount Pictures, Brian Robbins, mentioned that they'll be treating original animated features like an afterthought, this was admittedly something to be expected. But still, it doesn't change that it's rather shocking how this movie's marketing is nearly non-existent, and only at the last minute did they say that they'd only give this a limited theatrical run and then throw it into video on demand just a few days later. Seriously, I've seen more effort into advertising with Ruby Gillman than I have with Under the Boardwalk. Why is Paramount fully neglecting this feature? Oh, wait a minute, now I see the problem.
What did you say to me?
No, that wasn't me. That was, him.
Him who?
But you know what? Maybe I'm giving this movie more publicity than Paramount ever did by doing this review, but we might as well see if there is something worthwhile here. Did Paramount make a big mistake of not giving this the kind of attention that it deserves? Or was their mistake that they shouldn't have made this movie in the first place? Let's find out. The story. The best way to describe Under the Boardwalk is that this is the kid-friendly version of West Side Story. It tells the tale of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet that we are all familiar with, but with the addition of show-stopping musical numbers, a New England setting, or in this case, the Jersey Shore, and comically exaggerated accents. I might as well be straightforward with this now and say that the story doesn't leave much to the imagination. What I've described is everything you'd expect from a kid's movie like this, as it narratively doesn't do much to change the formula of the original tale, along with providing comedy that isn't terrible, but not effective either to be used as a way to keep the viewer's interest throughout.
And guess what? I don't care! And we do not spit in their food, Jimmy Romaine!
In fact, the majority of its unique assets as a Romeo and Juliet adaptation were given to the animators with its hermit crab theme. The only significant twist that the story offers is having the leads find themselves scurrying around the human Jersey Shore where they potentially fall in love. And yet, that's just another tiring trope that can be commonly found in many other animated works. The only thing it does to the picture is just emphasize that there is this bland approach to the plot.
Hey, come on, Armin. You're just in a rut, that's all. You gotta get out of your shell, buddy. Take a risk. Get the blood pumping.
Also, while I won't spoil this, but I also want to note that the ending feels a little rushed. Once the film goes through its climax, it's as if the movie itself got impatient and unnaturally solved all the conflicts in one big shot so that it could jump straight into the final musical number.
This is exactly why I didn't want to come out tonight, Bobby.
Unfortunately, it is fair to say that Under the Boardwalk is a generic family-friendly feature whose script offers next to nothing that is new. However, here is the weird thing about this movie. As unoriginal as this story may be, there is something about it that strangely works. Despite easily guessing the outcomes of the events, I did find myself getting engaged with this picture. The plot's saving grace is that it has a great emotional core, one that encouraged audiences to connect with the characters so that they could present their soul. And the more that bond is established, the more I wanted to see the happy ending where Armin and Ramona do get together and for the crabs to end their conflict.
You're seeing me on a particularly good day. I mean, if I've been brave at all, it's only because of you.
That, and it did a great job in delivering the morals. Not just the classic message of Romeo and Juliet that speaks against prejudice and the destructive problems with social class rivalries, but also regarding, well, coming out of your shell. To open up more to the world around you and to present how there is more to you than your exterior. These are not just great messages to provide the viewer with some substance, but they're also used to give the characters more depth and strengthen their qualities to make it better for people to connect with them.
Hey, where you going?
Finding our friend is more important than teaching some sea crabs a lesson.
On paper, the story is generally weak, and this could be passed off as just another generic Romeo and Juliet adaptation. And while there is no shell big enough to hide from that fact, the execution commendably does its best to make it heartfelt, and even I have to admit that it worked. The animation. It's honestly strange how Paramount tried to hide this from the public. Yet the result done by most of the people who worked on this film, the animation team, is actually very nice. And I don't just mean that it's all well rendered and it has this polished look to be visually clean as a computer animated feature, but there is also an admirable amount of creativity that is present. What I probably consider to be the movie's best element is the world building. The way that there is this hermit crab version of the Jersey Shore, and taking advantage of their small scale so that they can use ordinary objects to build their environment, along with adapting to their surroundings by turning part of the beach into a little resort, and even using parts of the human Jersey Shore to make it their own.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Even the crabs themselves are visually impressive. They have a simple yet cute design to be appealing for all ages, while including a little cartoon touch to feel unapologetically animated. And as they make the most out of the way that they scurry around with their little legs and how they adapt or switch around their shells, they also go all out on the character animation with the choreography. The crabs really want to make a spectacle out of the musical numbers, and with the way that there can be a large cast featured all at once, the dances can debatably be the best parts of the moments with how everyone is in sync with the songs.
A line in the sand that no wave can wash away.
Although, as weird as it may be, one part that I really do like about the crabs is actually their shells. Not only have the animators developed a large variety of unique looking shells for each character, but I also really like how some of the land crabs use different objects as their shells, or as little accessories to make them look a little more Jersey, per se.
As I was saying... Seriously?
What? I slipped. You try wearing these heels.
Oh!
It's also worth mentioning that it has a good use of color, as it mainly focuses on having a beach-themed palette where light blue and yellowy orange are the most prominent, while several others are included to liven up the look. But then there is the human side of this world with the actual Jersey Shore. I'll say now that it is well crafted with a shoreside tourist attraction with rides and gift shops, all scaled to be huge so that we could see it from the perspective of the crabs. It's not how it was built that is the problem, it's just that the concept of it is dull. Again, there are so many cartoons that have already done this cliché, so it's not as interesting or creative when compared to the little town for the crabs, and feel a bit of a drag that around half of the movie is spent there where the potential lovers do what you'd expect in that place instead of using objects from there to make their own habitat. That, and the humans don't look great either. It's true that most of the focus are on the crabs, but the way the people are done feel like an afterthought and don't even look like they were finished.
That's right. Jersey Shore, baby.
Ah, tourists!
I cannot say that it's the most impressive animation that I've seen, but I still think that it looks great. And not only did the team do well on what they've worked on, but there is an extra layer of creativity that makes the film a bit more fun. The characters. A key factor to what helped this movie become a little more than just another generic kids flick is the way that the characters are built. Despite playing the typical roles that come from these stories, they do try to show more than just their outer shell so that their emotions can carry the feature in a tender way. The quality of their writing may vary, where there are some that have some nice complexities while others are straightforwardly flat, but what ultimately made the cast work is the voice acting. For many of these crabs, the actors are the ones who did the most to convey their personalities, and as they're having fun and playing around with the accents, they also explore their sentimental side to present how they may not be who they first seem and how their feelings can drive their motivations.
I guess I just wanted to make my own mistakes for once. You know?
Well, I'd say you did it.
Starting off in the shore is Armin, who really puts the hermit in Hermit Crab. Ever since he lost his parents from a big wave, he became highly introverted, where he's too scared to be social and developed a fear of water. Despite the constant pressure from his friends, he always wants to stay safe and stick to a regular routine, worried that anything different from that would flip things upside down. However, that all started to change when he met Ramona, and through the adventure he experiences with her, he has no choice but to gain a taste of actually living his life and become more independent from his insecurities.
Believe me, but I'm not like these other crabs. All right? I don't throw my claws in the air. I don't wave them like I just don't care, because I care.
Speaking of which, Ramona is a sea crab who wants to be more outgoing and defying her mother's orders. While her part doesn't go further than just the extroverted love interest, the movie does well to present the relationship between the two, and how it may go against their respective crabs' laws, they discover that they're more alike than what they were taught, forming this genuine connection as they traverse around the human side of the shore.
You've never been here? And you live here? Armin, we're doing this!
There is also Armin's friend who lives in his shell.
Okay, don't hurt yourself.
Honestly, that guy made me worried because I thought he was going to be cringe throughout the movie by being the ethnic sidekick. And when I say ethnic, I mean...
If I had known my roommate was going to be such a stick in the mud, I never would have moved in.
Yeah, that. However, I was surprised to find that he's mostly present just on the first act. Once Armin and Ramona are at the people's shore, he's mostly out. As for the other crabs, there's Bobby Marinara, Armin's buff friend accompanied by Manny and Jimmy. The trio are the knucklehead buddies who often get into trouble and want to make sure that they keep up their rule that their turf is locals only. However, Bobby is a bit more different. On top of empathizing with Armin the most, he also has this desire to show that there is more to him than his tough exterior, and that his heart is stronger than his muscles.
You know, it's like they expect it from me, and well, I'm just sick and tired of not being seen for me. You know what I mean?
There are also a whole lot of other crabs featured, like Armin's uncle Bruno, Bobby's parents, and Ramona's mother and deaf sister, but their roles are minimal compared to the ones I've mentioned, and they're more either to liven up the environment or to provide one aspect to the leads. But then there's the villain Mako, the high-class and selfish British bad guy looking to have Ramona as his lover. He's basically the cartoon crab version of Cal Hockley from Titanic. And it's worth noting that, as he is the prominent British character, he's the one that is meant to be voiced by Russell Brand. Of course, you'd expect that, like any other Hollywood movie, Paramount would immediately recast Mako to disassociate themselves with Brand and his concerning controversies. Well, here's the thing. They didn't. Yes, despite hiding his name in the marketing, Russell Brand's voice is still intact in the final film. I know this may spark some debates how this movie did not cancel him or whatever, but keep in mind that Paramount did sabotage the entire movie from having any success and screwed over just about everyone who worked on the film, so in a way, everybody loses in this ordeal.
Oh, Mummy, please don't go! And if you do, will you continue to support me financially? Mama!
I understand if that can make the movie uncomfortable for some, but for the rest of the characters, they do well to show that there is so much more in that shell that they can offer. The songs. Just like West Side Story, one thing this movie did to really liven up its Romeo and Juliet version is to make itself a Broadway-style musical, and really making a spectacle out of the moments. However, I must confess that out of all the elements in this movie, I find that the songs are the weakest. I'll say now that it's not because I think they're bad to the point that I cringe anytime the crabs start singing. It's just that, just like the story itself, they feel forgettably generic. As big as they may try to portray them, they don't provide a whole lot of substance to the picture, as their purpose would have easily been replaced with the scene just flowing naturally for only a minute. There's Welcome to New Jersey, that's meant to establish the film's setting.
Welcome to New Jersey. Get in a car and stay up high.
There's Anyone Else, that's meant for the two leads to express their loneliness.
It's so lonely. No way.
Line in the Sand is to show the rivalry between the land and sea crabs.
Line in the sand, but no wave can wash away.
Look Around is Ramona's number about living life to the fullest through a montage.
Look around,
And you might be surprised.
More Than a Meathead is for Bobby to show that he can have more heart than muscle.
my beach needs me. Please believe me.
And finally, there's the movie's finale, Going Out.
We're going out, hey, we're going out under the boardwalk.
Like I said, they're okay as is, and there's nothing I could really find to hate them for. But there's something about them that doesn't feel genuine. The movie gives off the sense that this may not have been initially created as a musical in mind, and that the songs were added later in production due to an executive decision. As much as the characters and the message may have heart, I don't get that same sense from the songs. That's why after a musical number is done, I barely remember what they've just played because they can be that forgettable. The only thing that makes them worthwhile is the animation with all the choreography and the cinematography. When you take that away, there's not much that the numbers can offer other than generic tunes you'd find in most other musicals. There are some things that I'll remember from this picture, but the songs are not one of them. For a movie that the studio tried to neglect in the hopes that no one would notice its existence, this was unexpectedly good. Under the Boardwalk is a pleasant surprise that provided enough heart to stand out from the typical family-friendly feature. Yes, it does have a generic Romeo and Juliet style story, forgettable songs, and the awkward inclusion of Russell Brand in the cast after the backlash he got, but it was able to break through most of its problems with a strong emotional core, likable characters, and really nice animation. I wouldn't consider this to be a high priority to do so, but this is a movie I'd recommend to check out at least once. I'm sure it won't be the worst thing you'll ever watch, and I can't imagine that this could turn out to be a hidden gem for some that can gather a small cult following. And speaking of following, if you enjoyed this review, then consider giving this a like and subscribe to my channel. You can join me in discovering more hidden animated films that could be worth seeing. As much as Paramount doesn't want you to watch this movie, I'd counter that argument and say, I don't see why I shouldn't.
You don't know nothing.
No, I don't. I'm confused, truth be told.
That's a good kid.